kinds of things. It usually takes till about Wednesday until I can really find the Sinister Mysteries. And I found a bunch of them for this one. And there was something that really bugged me, and we'll get into it in the show, with counter narratives. And that is the idea of this daycare center, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we know that what the hell's his head, the sniper, shot a woman holding a 10-month baby. We know they shot Ray Reaver's, it's not Ray.
Randy.
They shot Randy Weaver's son, who was a teenager.
Yep, Sammy.
So I don't know if there were child casualties during 9/11, but 19 children died during this. I think this is a good place to say. I'm sorry, I'm kind of hogging this, Craig. I'm going to turn it over to you in a minute.
Oh, no.
You all know that I spent a lot of time in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's 107 miles northeast of Oklahoma City. So same thing with 9/11. I know people who were directly touched. You can guarantee that we're going to do this with a ton of respect. But the facts are, when you start looking at the dominant narrative, Craig, and after we roll the opening, I'd like to come back and just get the dominant narrative out of the way. And that will give us plenty of time to talk about why this.
Yep, absolutely.
This is a bucket with a lot of holes in the bottom. So, new superhero B-Man douses the world with sweetness. I guess so. I just kind of want to go to bed, Charles, but this is important. So we're gonna roll opening. Welcome everyone for wherever you're coming. The Beardos are with us. So the Beardos and the Mysterios and the Outer Realmers are all gathering together because I think we have a nice product here. Oh, that's the private chat. Just bear with me. Everything's gonna be fine.
Yes.
Here's the opening. Welcome to the show. There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, the couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
I'm telling you, we need a producer for this. I'm sitting during the intro. I'm like, oh, there's not enough time. I'm clicking to all the places I'm trying to share it to. I'm like, there's not enough time. I'm click.
It looks like you're live streaming to one other place instead of your usual two.
Yeah, well, it's some of. I guess they changed it. It's like for Twitter, you need to have a premium account now to go live. And so I don't have a premium that I know of. I don't have a premium account. So
you would know it.
Yeah, so I'll figure that part out. So I was just, now is not the time to do the tech side.
Is that some kind of winged creature on your T-shirt?
No, this is from Zelda. Triforce.
Oh, neat. That's very cool. Because I was gonna say, the Mothman 66 escape room is officially open. It is officially a 5-star escape room. People are loving it. So if you get down to the home of the Mothman, check it out. They got swag. They got stickers. They got keychains. They got refrigerator magnets. So it's pretty cool. It's a very cool design. Jeff Wamsley, graphic designer, does these things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's pretty bad, but so I said too much in the opening. So how and what do you want to start with?
I mean, we basically, can do like the Walter Cronkite type thing. I mean, we just get the basics out of the way. It's everybody, Oklahoma, everybody just go, I said Oklahoma City, everybody just go on normal, it's just every normal life. And at 9:02 a.m., the world is altered forever for that city. I mean, there's a loud boom, and we're just getting into the infancy of this thing with Ruby Ridge, Waco. I've said this the last couple of shows. The cable news thing really isn't the 24-hour juggernaut that it is now, where it's just you got news 24 hours a day just constantly hitting you. That's why it feels like things are so crazy now, is because you've got YouTube, you've got all these things where it's live 24-hour news cycles, just rapid fire. So this is stuff you're still looking at the major networks, but then here's these CNNs and stuff that are starting to throw this stuff, so people are starting to watch. So we'll get into this in the show, where the narrative constantly is changing because everybody's got to be that first one. I've got to be and we just saw it just a week and a half ago with the assassination attempt. Everybody's got to be that first one to get their information out, and then you're like, okay, that wasn't right. That's not right. You see how fast this stuff happens. So 9:02 a.m., April 19th, 1995, and a massive explosion blows up. This just absolutely levels. I don't have my notes in front of me. The name of the building's failing me right now.
Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building.
Yeah, thank you. Just levels the front of this thing. I mean, it looks like you see like tornado disaster things where it wipes out almost a third of the building. And all we know is that this government building has been, and everybody's out there. It's, Arab terrorists, this is because it wasn't too long, the Twin Towers were targeted, the Trade Center was targeted. And so this is one, and that's a little foreshadowing for anybody to some of the stuff we will be talking about here a little later. So all these things are coming out, like even the beginning, and I'm not going to get to all the details. So all we know is that now at this point, at 9:02 a.m., there's a massive explosion. We don't know the casualties yet. We don't know anything. People are scrambling because nobody knows what's going on. And so that is where we start for this thing. Is this, and I went with just like the name. It's behind our pictures, but I said the pressure builds, and this is something that is kind of a play on for anybody that feels like it's from the both sides. Is that was there pressure to intentional pressure to create get somebody to do this event to cause a reason to even furthermore crack down on the militia groups, or was this one where just there's militia groups didn't feel like they had applied enough pressure on the federal government, and so they were in this so it's kind of like a double on I don't think double entendre is the right way to say that.
Yeah, it is. It's a double entendre. Yeah, it's a double meaning phrase. Yeah, doesn't have to be sexual to be a double.
No. That's what I said. I mean, it's not a juxtaposition. I mean, it's not because it's almost the same thing. It's just yeah. All right, that's enough literary talk for the night. Let's get back to the
and I think always topical, Craig. As the information was coming out, it definitely reminds me of what happened in Butler, PA, but it also reminds me of Roswell. A lot more truth was originally said and then backed way off of, which kind of sort of bit them in the butt. So it's synonymous with this, the way Lee Harvey Oswald will always be synonymous with Kennedy, no matter what we know, is a guy called Timothy McVeigh, a veteran military, a white supremacist, fan of William Pierce's Turner Diaries, about a guy named Turner who gets fed up with the government overreach. And that is a phrase that is very, very disliked by the powers that be, by the algorithms and all, but I'm going to say it anyway. government overreach, all of that kind of thing. He's passing out Turner diaries to people. People in the army's got to keep it secret. It's very, very subversive. What happens in the Turner diaries? Turner gets fed up and bombs the government building with a truck bomb made of ammonium nitrate fertilizer. Okay.
Yep.
In the army, he gets a Bronze Star for bravery. Because he gets the Bronze Star, he has a chance to go special forces, and he washes out in 2 days, and his military career is done. The other two guys in this story, one is Terry Nichols. He served with both of them. One is Terry Nichols. Terry helped him with the bomb. So goes the narrative.
I don't know if this is the perfect place to jump in with this, but for me, I was always like Timothy McVeigh. Timothy James McVeigh was the demon. He was the one, that focused on. I am actually, through my research, I actually believe Terry Nichols was more of a bigger part of this picture than Timothy McVeigh was.
All right. Well, that's why we do this, and the two of us do it, and we don't compare notes, because I didn't find anything on that at all. So I can't wait. I cannot wait to hear that. But he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. They served in the army together with a guy named Michael, I think it's Fortier. That's how I would say it. Fortier. Michael Fortier, an accomplice who testified against McVeigh and Nichols and served 10 years in prison. So I think he got out about 2 years early. Craig has masterfully put this together. In 2 weeks, we're going to do Ted Kaczynski, because these things are like boxcars. Ruby Ridge and Waco comes from that, and Oklahoma City. So Timothy McVeigh was at Waco. Did you know that, Craig? That was one of the things that I found real late in my research. Yeah, he was actually there. He was definitely radicalized by what he saw. No real surprise there. A lot of anti-government sentiment. Also, too, guy enlists in the army. Same thing with Fortier. Same way with Nichols. And quite frankly, same way with guys, Craig, that I've spoken to from the millennials, from our generation, who got over to Iraq, got over to Afghanistan, got over to the Middle East, and saw that something smelled. Saw that they were being used for an agenda, that the truth wasn't being told. Yeah, and then after Waco and Ruby Ridge and all, it was kind of on. So the narrative goes, they got a Ryder truck. They made a bomb. Now, they had some explosives training in the army, and Craig, this has come up with every one of these things, because these guys are ex-military, and they're disillusioned ex-military. It's like, how much explosives training did they have? Right? I guess this is before, and again, we can't get demonetized, but it's hard enough getting in the algorithms with the things we talk about.
Yeah, and I put a picture up there for people to see.
Isn't there something called like the Anarchist Cookbook or something like that? That has like how to make a bomb or whatever. I'm not sure that is that the one that he got. Is that the
this is
Mercury?
the one. Yeah, this is the one where this is a Chevy one, but he's on a Chevy. This one where he's selling bumper stickers. And this fear the government, that fears your gun, ban gun, it's just he's got all these bumper stickers, and that's it. But this is at the Waco Siege.
Yeah.
And so
cool. I didn't know there was a photo. Okay, neat. Because in my research, there was a woman who had interviewed him and then put the pieces together when she saw him on the news. So they rent this. Supposedly, they construct the bomb in a rented storage unit in Kansas. They rent the truck in Junction City, Kansas. Craig already told you the explosion was 9:02 a.m. CDT, so it was 10 o'clock in the morning. I remember it. I remember when it happened. 168 people die, including 19 children in the daycare center. And Craig, for 72 hours, I was so hung up on that daycare center looking at alternative narratives. Because I was like, you got to be some kind of cold-hearted SOB, because the truck was parked right underneath where the daycare center was. But I found an explanation for it. We'll get into it when we get there. 680 people injured. Everybody remembers I came across it. I think it's too heartbreaking to even show, Craig. the fireman holding the dead
Mhm.
child. Just absolutely heartbreaking. Garth Brooks did the song. I mean, it was indelible what happened. So should I talk about the arrest, or you want to interdict anything? Or
No, I would say just keep going. Hey,
okay,
Laura. I said, yeah, I would keep, I would just keep going right there because I think this is pretty much right in the thing where we've got, because this is going to be, for me, as we're going through this, people are going to see a lot of similarities to what's going on currently,
yeah,
to where this, these people, the people that have been, I mean, we saw this one, everybody remembers, look at the guy that was originally being pointed at as the shooter
yeah,
when this just happened. And it's like that guy had nothing to do with it.
yeah.
And it was a completely different guy.
Then
Yeah.
there was another guy, but that guy, like, people were sending me, look how searches for this guy's name spiked this morning. It wasn't even the guy. The one guy was like some soccer player or something, and the other
Yep.
guy happened to be holding an AR-15. So, oh, that must be the dude because we found this guy on the internet. I know, it's nuts. And there have been other terrorist or school shooter where these poor people have to go on Facebook or whatever and go, this is not me. Like, I'm at work right now. Like, I am not at some school,
Yeah.
a
I'm not
state
dead.
away. It's scary.
I'm not dead. I'm right here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary. It's scary. So anyway, the building, like Craig said, about a third of it was destroyed. The entire front was kind of sheared off. You could just look in like they were cubbies, like when we were in kindergarten. It's kind of what it looked like. So here's where it starts to get a little weird, but as we unpack it, trust me, it will get much weirder. Timothy McVeigh is arrested 90 minutes after the event. He's driving an 18-year-old, badly running rusty Mercury with no license plates and a bunch of like right-wing propaganda on the seat. Who escapes from a crime scene in a car and then goes out on the highway that's got no damn plates, right? Where the cops are active, they're on the road, they're looking. It's a little ridiculous. I think I'll hold why, but he's arrested for traffic violation, possession of a firearm, and they start to put the pieces together, connected to the bombing through vehicle identification, because the car was on site.
Yep.
I'll hold what that's about. Nichols surrenders 2 days later. Evidence is found at his home linking him to the bombing. I'll just throw this out there again. I already said it once, and I probably won't mention it again. Neither one of these guys, this was a pretty complex bomb. It seems to be in the literature and all. And these guys shouldn't have known how to make this thing. Okay. Let's just get through the trials real quick, Craig, and then we can use the rest of the time talking about why the narrative doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
McVeigh is tried April 24th, 1997. He's convicted a couple months later, not even, on June 2nd, 1997. He's sentenced to death. He forgoes. He's not allowed to talk to anybody. At some point, he gives a very long interview to a couple of reporters. He doesn't want any what happens? Peels. He doesn't want any trial, and he asked to have his execution fast-tracked. I'm going to postulate, Craig, it might have been about those 19 kids. The guilt and why he wanted to.
I think that's one of the, remember right, I think that's one of the ones, it's like, I think he was kind of, it's like I said, I don't want to paint him as, it's like a good person in any way. I mean, because he's not. But you're one of those, you could see that there was still at least a conscience, because whenever it came around to like the kids in the daycare, you could see that was not, even though they would say like, well, that's just collateral damage. You could see that wasn't really what he was, he was going for. That's not what in his mind, that was not one of the targets. But you, like you said, I'm looking forward to like your research, and that's one of the things I honestly think it was kind of, I mean, you said you watched the X-Files. It was kind of that same way, where it's like there was, in the X-Files movie, they said, there was firefighters that, and it was kind of like, that wasn't part of the plan. It's like, why would they have even been, so it's one of those things. It's like, that wasn't the target. The target was the other agencies that were all inside that building. And I think this just happened to be.
I actually disagree with that. That building wasn't even the original target.
Yeah, that's
according to my research.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the thing.
Get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that one because I said
yeah.
This one almost just seemed like it's like, well, this one will do.
Yeah. Well, it was a desperation move, I think. So we're teasing you guys, but we'll unfold it. And Laura, yeah, I am going to get to Elohim City. So thank you for mentioning it. And then I'll refer back to your comment. I'll put it up on the screen. He was executed June 11th, 2001, 3 months to the day before 9/11, Craig. Sometimes I don't know if it's the universe or the Matrix or just dumb freaking luck, but there's such a tether of connection between WTC 93, OKC 95, WTC 2001 that's chilling, that it was 3 months to the day before. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
Terry Nichols, let's just get through it because there's so much that's not right. And the audience is already talking about it. Like, why would they leave crap at their home, implicating them? And why, 90 minutes out on the road in this piece of crap car? We're gonna try to unpack some of that for you. Terry Nichols' trial begins on September 29th, 1997. He's convicted in December, so his trial went about a month, about 6 weeks longer than McVeigh's, which is interesting. He got life in prison because he supposedly funded the operation and built most of the bomb. So, Craig, you've alluded, and Charles in the chat room have alluded to, he was much more involved. 48 pleads guilty to some lesser charges, testifies against the two men, 12-year sentence, released in 2006. That is the narrative that these guys rented the truck, they built the bomb. McVeigh drove it to Oklahoma City, parked it underneath a daycare center, and blew up that building. That is the narrative. And it stings.
Well, yeah, because like I said, it's, stop me if I'm jumping away here, because you said Michael Forty, well, the other person that's involved is Lori, his wife, because she was the one that laminated the driver's license.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, so she was involved, but through the plea deal where Michael, so he was sentenced to 12 years, and so as part of his plea deal, she was not charged, so that's why she was not involved, even though she had knowledge of what was going on. In the same way with this Michael Forte, he knew what was going on, and then the other one where I alluded to with like how the news thing was all the speculation on who John Doe number 2 was.
Yeah.
And that was the mysterious one. Yeah, the mysterious one. And the people that were picked, they thought the Ryder truck, they even during that investigation, they went after, I forgot to write it down. They actually went and confronted him. He wasn't even, it was like the day before. And so he wasn't. So he's discounted. And unless you found something, as far as I know, that John Doe number 2 has never been identified.
No,
there's ones that say that we don't even know if there really was a John Doe number 2, or if this is just somebody. And this goes down the rabbit hole thing for people. This is going to be that conspiracy, little nugget I'll throw out there for people. Was this somebody that was involved from everybody say it together?
Yeah,
that was implicated in this one, and this was part of the materials thing, and because of the ties to possibly the people that's underneath you down there, that was why John Doe number 2 has yet to ever be identified or found.
Right. And there was another one.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, right? That's another word that we're supposed to use.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly. So this is Bill Clinton's presidential moment. The way that 9/11 was George Bush's presidential moment. The way that 9/11 was Rudy Giuliani's presidential moment. The way that we got Osama bin Laden said Barack Obama. I managed to get through that one. These are the moments that these guys live for. They absolutely live for these kinds of things. It was Bill's thing. Oklahoma City National Memorial was established on the site of the building. There's an annual remembrance ceremony on April 19th every year. So there was a lot of mileage on this. We got the bad guys. We're fighting the right wing. We will win. But almost right away, the same thing with Roswell. Within 2 days, Craig, I don't know if you read this, but it was fascinating to me. There was a journalist at the Chicago Tribune, Chicago of all places, where Obama's starting to cut his teeth, right? A guy named Mike Royko writes 2 days after, so the day that Terry Nichols turned himself in, this is an act of war. We need to end immigration from hostile countries. We should not take an eye for an eye. We should take both ears, nose, and the entire anatomy. So this is where they're floating out this narrative within 2 days through the Chicago Tribune, pretty substantial newspaper, that this is an act of foreign terror from the Iraqis.
Yeah.
And that we should go, which they finally got their way on 9/11, right? I mean, 20 years of destruction of two countries for 9/11, right? The Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. Do you know who wrote that bill, my friend?
Oh, I wish I should know this.
I don't mean to put you on the hook. It's just fascinating. Joe Biden wrote that.
I was just going to say, that sounds like something that would be tied to a Biden, one of his bills. Yeah.
I'm giving you the points. Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. This was the basis for the Patriot Act. I'm telling you, WTC 93, OKC 95, WTC 2001 are all of a piece. The playbook is getting written, and it's, so what comes out of it, just like Waco, just like Ruby Ridge, increased focus on domestic terrorism, militia groups. It's a very interesting thing at the time, sir.
Well, you can see right this. We're sorry, just this is where the Patriot, because everybody says, well, how could this stuff just suddenly, well, that's just a conspiracy. No, this is just like the Affordable Health Care Act. You don't just come up with 2,000 pages of documents overnight. It doesn't happen. This stuff doesn't happen. I mean, we're going to be talking about Project 2025. This is a massive document. This doesn't just happen overnight. This is something that's been written over a long period of time.
Yeah.
The same thing, this Patriot Act. This wasn't something that was just crafted after the towers came down and that as allegedly, here it comes again, this was one of the ones that feeds a lot of the conspiracy theories on 9/11, is that the document came prior to the event. And so this, speaks to, well, doesn't this show that there was, that there really was a chance that we were behind, some of these events that occurred, and, allegedly, it's like, it's so stupid we have to do this, but it's like, yeah, it's like, people, the algorithms, would you let people make their own minds up? It does, we're not, this isn't hard fact, I'm going to go allegedly all night long. It just drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to start saying government overreach a lot, because that gets you on the Palantir list if you talk about government overreach. So this is not a case actually tonight, ironically. Ruby Ridge and Waco were definitely government overreach. This isn't necessarily that, but never let a good crisis go to waste, says Rahm Emanuel of Chicago.
Yep.
And Kingmaker extraordinaire. So at this time, the FBI has a real problem. The FBI is under a guy named Louis Freeh, and nobody likes this guy. And if you look, he was in for quite a long time. He's got a huge list of these kind of egg on your face kind of situations. He is hemorrhaging senior investigators. The FBI is absolutely in crisis, and now they have to deal with this. So it's a little bit of a perfect storm.
Did you look into his background?
Oh yeah, I
at
was
all in your
studying it.
research?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But go ahead.
well, just real quick, the part that was the craziest to me is one. Okay, so maybe it's just because we're so used to it now. Bill Clinton administration appointed, like I said, a staunch Republican, allowed this as the director of the FBI. So one of those things was, so was he supposed to take the fall so that the Republican Party took the takes the egg on their face, the bullet, or was this one of those things like has been said many times? And I do Bill Clinton, for whatever mistakes he actually was probably one of the last, and since him nobody's done exactly. He actually did more to work with both sides. To actually try to form a and
Yeah.
so I'm more inclined to think that it was just one, he seemed like the guy for the job at the time,
and back at that time,
intentional.
Back at that time, the partisan politics, but it did get very trying to impeach him opened the floodgates to let's impeach every president ever since, right? Or attempt to. It really, the Republicans ironically did really turn on him with the red dress, the blue dress, and the Monica Lewinsky and this and that. That's really where the aisle really started to fracture. But yeah, you're right.
We got an amazing one after that one, Robert Mueller. I mean, it's just, but no, it's just, I looked at just using the lenses from today. I was just like, how did this guy ever get past the Democrat Party? He's part of just basically the Republican establishment. I mean, in every way. And I'm like, wow, how would this have even occurred? And then you're like, well, you got to remember, back in that time, it just because you had a D or an R in your name didn't suddenly mean you were the devil.
No,
you were evil. I mean, it's
right.
kind of not like it is today, where it's like people are hated just because of their party affiliation.
Right. And bills were actually passed that had nothing to do with the economy. Like Congress would actually work together, work out a deal, do a bipartisan bill. Like, yeah, sometimes people don't remember that. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Louis Beam now, if we could.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
1994, there's a man named Louis Beam who's building a major reputation as a radical propagandist. He came up with something called 1,000 points of resistance. And he liked to speak. And he was talking about a year prior, a bombing that was going to happen. He spoke to a criminal who happened to be singing for law enforcement at the time. This is a little bit of a theme with OKC. But anyway, he says that it's going to happen either Dallas, Denver, or OKC on April 19th, 1995. Why, folks? Think back to a couple of weeks ago. What happened on April 19th, 1993? Craig, I know you know. Waco. They burned the place to the ground and killed all those people. So this was, we are going to do something big. We are going to commemorate it. The interesting thing is law enforcement was aware, just like it might have been aware. Oh, geez, man, you got Pearl Harbor, you got 9/11. We said it on the show, our 9/11 show, so I'll say it again. Craig, I'm going to pause before, because I teased out that that building wasn't actually the original target. Before I go into that, I want to give you some time to pull in anything you want to pull in.
No, keep going, because like I said, I'm the same. I mean, okay. just a little thing about Louis Beam too. I mean, it's a little side note that the Boy Scouts rejected. He wanted to start a troop too. I mean, so you basically, it's almost like the youth movement. Like this would have been a radicalized Boy Scout troop. If he had been allowed. So he, like I said, he was. I mean, I would say, because he was a door gunner in Vietnam. I mean, he had a Distinguished Flying Cross medal. I mean, like I said, he was thing. So it wasn't, but just did Vietnam mess him up, and that's what really pushed him over the edge? I'm not sure, because it's, once again, the theme. They come back from fighting wars, and then all of a sudden it's like, some of these guys are like anti-government. I mean, hardcore.
Well, you're 17, 18 years old. You can't go to college or what happened. That was certainly my dad's deal and why he enlisted. You're a young, shiny 17-year-old who has the boomer generation in World War II, which you grew up in the glow of that. America can do no wrong. We're the heroes. We're the world police. Rah, rah, frickin' rah. And you go overseas and the realities are harsh. My two grandfathers would not let my father get married in his uniform. He was a chief petty officer in the Navy, a decorated chief petty officer in the Navy, and they said you are not to wear your uniform when they got married in 1966. So guys came back disillusioned, and my dad's dying of friggin' Agent Orange 50 years later. So 60, 70, whatever, 60 years later.
Yeah.
So you guys know I don't keep this a secret. Should I talk about the original target now?
Yeah, go for it. I'll jump in.
So my understanding from numerous sources is that there was a courthouse next door, and this is the target. But McVeigh can't get the truck into the parking garage because it's too freaking high. And so he's driving around for an hour in this Ryder truck. There's some film on it. People are noticing this Ryder truck going around the block again and again. And finally, out of desperation, driving this truck with this bomb in it that he has to activate a couple of switches on to make go, he parks in a handicapped spot under the daycare center. So that was a huge revelation to me. It was supposed to be the courthouse. This is why the daycare center, because he couldn't get the frickin' truck under the courthouse, which we know from WTC 1993 with the van bomb. You go underground, you let that bomb go, and you let it do its thing. Doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense to park a truck bomb outside of a big, concrete federal building. You know what I mean? They're like brick shit houses, those things.
And one of the crazy part too is you look at it. I mean, it almost looked like it was just the front just like folded. I mean, it's just I mean, you would think, especially with concrete, that it would survive, but that's one of the things too, like the blast, where everybody was so quick to rush. I mean, originally, I want to say that they said it was like 2,200 pound explosive. Well, by the time they're done, it was almost, I want to say the final number was somewhere around 6,000, wasn't it?
It was what they figured. It was giant and complicated, and you had to activate a couple of switches, and that's why they go, how the hell did these two guys, these two jabronis, these two jamooks, right? Jamokes, how the hell did they? Yeah,
that's where Terry. That's where Terry comes in.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that now?
We can. I mean, it's.
Yeah. Why don't you?
Did you look into Ramzi? Did you look into Ramzi Ahmed Youssef?
Yeah. Well, Ramzi, yes, who was February 26, 1993, masterminded the WTC van bomb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take it away, brother.
Yeah. So that was, right there, like I said, that has been one of the things, like through the research I was looking in, people were targeting, like, this is probably where they started to get their information. It's kind of like you mentioned, like the anarchist cookbook. It's like, so some of these guys are building like, because we're going to talk about the Unabomber, that's coming up too. And so we're, so one of those things that, so how do these guys get this information? Well, this is how, you have this stuff that's starting to disseminate through gun shows, other, these things, people are picking up these books. Well, then some of these guys actually go and act upon this information. Yeah. Well, this guy, basically, I've got a little thing printed out here. You basically, he took trips to the Philippines, Terry Nichols. And so one of those, there was a tour guide by the name of Daisy Gillespie. She had told police that on a trip in 1990 that Nichols had asked if she knew anybody that knew how to build bombs. Okay, this is, as they would say in the courtroom, hearsay. It's would not hold in the court because it's second, third hand knowledge. This is somebody saying that I overheard some conversation that this person was asking this, and you're like, okay, well, that's not going to hold up. So you take that at face. Okay, he's in the Philippines. you have this person ask this thing. That this is where Nichols met basically his mail order bride during this trip, and they were married in there. So he made additional trips to the Philippines during the early 90s, and was even in this town was called I think it's Cebu City is how you pronounce it. Correct me anybody if I'm
SEBU?
wrong on that. Yeah, CEBU.
Mm-hmm.
So he made trips to this time, but during the same time frame, this Ramzi Youssef was there as well. And so now we have both these people in the same location at the same time. So this isn't so once again, just because you're in the same country doesn't mean, but they're starting to, things are starting to overlap. So this within days of, and then Youssef had the Manila bomb factory was raided. There was a raid. I think this was on January 6th of 1995. And at the same time, Nichols, got out of the Philippines. So Nichols leaves the Philippines. Okay. Well, that's amazing timing. He gets out when the raid on Youssef. So they go through this, and this is like the hearsay. This is from different ones. There was a thing that, Nichols' wife found a book on explosives, after he left, he found this stuff.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So Ramzi was, he was responsible, in his involvement in the World Trade Center bombings back there.
He was the key guy.
So this is where through the research they're finding this is the guy. So now he has the knowledge, he has the understanding of how to build a truck bomb, because that's what in the first World Trade Center bombing was. And so basically you're almost the World Trade Center bombing, had it been a better bomb, there may not have been that much of a building for 9/11.
Right.
There is, this is kind of, like I said, I could go through the whole thing, but this is one, you have, I think there's, Timothy McVeigh had tried to make an ammonium nitrate, like remote bomb, same thing, and it didn't really work. So how do you go from this tinkering to all of a sudden Nichols comes back from overseas and they're able to build a fully functioning, massive scale truck bomb?
Yeah.
So this is where through my research, like I said, so I was curious to see if you had found anything. That's where it was when it's like, for me, it seems more like he was more of the mastermind behind the actual physical bomb.
Yes.
And Timothy was more of like the David Koresh type, the face of it, the one that was pushing, the rhetoric. But Terry Nichols was like, people are going to hate me for this. He was the Dick Cheney to the group.
Oh, whoa! Yeah, didn't see that coming.
he was the architect. It was, I said, people are gonna hate that one. But that's he seems like he was the one that was actual driving force behind it. Like he was the one that was, doing the logistics. Timothy McVeigh was the face. He was the charismatic, he was the one that was, revving up the crowd. And so,
and he's the guy who was in the truck that day. But yeah, funded the operation, built most of the bomb. Terry Nichols, right? So I kind of glossed over the deep dive. So thank you, sir. That's why it's a privilege to do this with you. So let's start looking at the law enforcement, the prosecutors, all that kind of thing here. The federal indictment spoke of others unknown. And following their trials, the judge urged the FBI and law enforcement to keep investigating, and they did not. They got their guys. There's already questions. There's people. We talked about a possible Iraq attack. Some Middle Easterners, a man named Ahmed, I believe, was questioned and then let go. Deals were made with other people, Craig. There were guys that were constellating around this who were already feeding information on other cases, so they couldn't be brought in, right? The minute you bring in a snitch, you can't use him for the other things he's being used for. So there seemed to be a lot of this kind of thing. Now, here's some of the stuff, and this is from The Guardian, from some other things. This isn't all like crazy conspiracy people stuff. The rental truck seen in Kansas at the park and the motel, people testified or said that it was not the same truck that was parked in front of the Murrah building. 2 people who were seen renting that bomb 2 days earlier on 17 the 2 people seen renting the truck on 17 April did not match McVeigh's description. So here, who are these 2 guys? So again, I'm going to keep going back to the federal indictment spoke of others unknown. Now, there's a video of McVeigh leaving with a never identified man in a baseball cap and another person, is my understanding, that on the video there's also this other person, and 20 different people verified what was shown on that video, that McVeigh was with these 2 other guys at some point. And just after he was not allowed to make public statements, and I think it was King said, like, why were these guys not allowed to talk to anybody or say anything? Well, look what they did to Lee Harvey Oswald. Make sure he didn't say anything. And what the hell? I'll say, because Jeffrey Epstein was like all over the chat room this evening. They didn't want him talking either. So they just shut McVeigh down. And Craig, I just got to go back to the fact that these 19 kids in the daycare center probably weighed heavy on his heart. This is not a way to make a statement when you're killing kids.
Yeah.
And to be anyway taken seriously or have your point be made. Or so deals all throughout this investigation, all throughout the trial process, deals were made in exchange for testimony. 6 right-wing radicals were not questioned aggressively, even though their alibis for April 19th were false. Other leads were purposely shut down. So obviously something stunk. If the judge said there is more to this story, I encourage you to keep digging. And they have these 6 radicals who are obviously lying about their whereabouts. They're making deals in exchange of testimony. They had the year before, they had Beam telling a criminal who was already connected with law enforcement that they were going to target either Dallas, OKC, or Denver on the 2nd anniversary of burning Waco to the ground. Wouldn't you frickin' a year later or 7 months later or 8 months later? And these are the questions that we're asking about the assassination attempt. This is no different than why the hell wouldn't you have people on the roof if there's direct line of sight 150 yards away? This is like security 101. Why wouldn't you have people monitoring those 3 buildings on that damn day? I mean, it's a freaking federal building. They're federal buildings. You can't find any law enforcement to like...
it makes you wonder, because like, especially you mentioned security. That was one thing I was going to bring up at some point too. During the trial times, after they've been arrested and stuff, did you ever notice through all the pictures? Did you see, Terry Nichols? You remember he had the jacket, the bulletproof vest on. Timothy McVeigh never wore one.
Mm-hmm.
So why was Terry Nichols, why did he have the one? Why were they worried that he was going to get shot, but not Timothy McVeigh?
Yeah.
Was that something that they were hoping that he would get hit? And this is one of those other little rabbit holes for people. This is one thing that some people will point to where they think Nichols was involved with other players. This is the crime family. This is where you get like the mob ties and stuff like these. Some of these things are brought in because so did they think that he was more of a target for an assassination hit than Timothy McVeigh, which means, and that's kind of why I hinted, that little bombshell what I told you, where I think he was more of the bigger fish than Timothy McVeigh was, is because this guy seems to be the driving force behind the face.
Right. Well, I think that McVeigh was supposed to disappear. You drive the truck down a la Ramsey Joseph. You drive the truck down into the parking garage. You frickin' leave it and you get out. he wasn't supposed to take that mercury. That mercury was supposed to be left on site as a plant.
Yep.
And out of desperation, he took the mercury, which explains the no license plate. Yeah, so the whole thing starts to fall apart in a really major way. Now, early in 1995, let's talk about, because Laura brought it up. Early 1995, ATF, our old pals from Waco and Ruby Ridge, they have an informant, a woman. She's placed in El Hohim City. And this is a radical place with a lot of guns, a lot of stuff. She hears talk. This is early 95 now. So 94, we have Louis Beam, telecriminal. On April 19th in 1995, we're going to target one of these 3 buildings. We haven't decided yet. She reports to her superiors, Craig, that she's hearing talk of bombings. And they pull her out. Why? Because they're scared to friggin' death after Waco and Ruby Ridge. That's their narrative. But if they wanted this to happen, you don't want an agent screwing it up by telling you, I told you it was going to happen, and you didn't listen to me.
Yep.
So they pull her out supposedly for her statement. Now, here's where it gets interesting. McVeigh, after she leaves, makes numerous phone calls to Elohim City and then visits there 2 weeks later to recruit. So there were people in Elohim City, Oklahoma, who knew what was up, who knew what was going on. And instead of the ATF leaving their informant on the ground to get the details, they pull her the hell out.
I had a sneeze.
Okay? Oh.
Yeah, I had a sneeze. I was preparing for it, but I lost it.
I mean, dude,
I'm getting a little verklempt. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic.
Come on, right?
Yeah, no. Well, that was one of the things too. Like with her picture, do you really? Kate, you're undercover. Are you really getting a swastika tattoo? Because I saw that picture. I mean, that's one of those things. It's like you're undercover. I mean, it's like, are you really? Like you said, I mean, these officers, okay, you're trying to, I mean, are you really getting white power? You're getting all these things tattooed on yourself because you're undercover. I don't think you have to get the tattoos to show that you're part of the, like to fit, like you're fitting in these things. So, did she become radical? Did she start to, become as she was thinking? I mean, I don't know. There's not a lot of details about it. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of questions too. I mean, this is one of those things where it fits right in there. The mystery. There's a lot of stuff that
they had it dead to rights, and guys, go to the chat room because Laura told us a whole bunch of things about Elohim City. She let me see if I can go back and grab some of this. It was
created in 1973 by Robert. I think it's Millar. Miller. It's not. I don't think it's Miller, but it's Millar. Maybe it's Miller. Maybe it's Millar. Miller. I don't know. Anyway, he's from Canada.
There we go.
Yeah, Canada. So it's one of the. Just if you look at it, he's Canadian immigrant, Mennonite, and stuff. But then they start this Christian identity movement, which is radicalized theology. This is kind of like the Reverend Wright in Chicago, that Barack Obama, the church that he went to. It's a radicalized version of Christianity. It's and they're on both sides. And so this one, they this became like a haven for this right wing thing. I mean, they even had ties to, like I said, they had members from the Aryan Republic, the ARA, the Aryan Republican Army, that came in there. And so this was definitely something that, this isn't something that you just, you just stroll in, what's up, dudes? This isn't one of those kind of camps. I mean, it's just, so I don't know. It kind of goes to that thing. It's like, how do you infiltrate something like this when these people are absolutely suspect of everybody?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Laura says that they'll literally come out of the trees with machine. When you go by it, they come out of the trees, meeting you from all angles once you hit the perimeter of the place, and they pull out their person, because I think that they, Mozart hair. Thank you. Very cool. Yeah, the genius hair. Anyway, fake it till you make it, right? So yeah, that is a huge red flag to me. And thank you, Laura, because we get confirmation on what all is up there. And he's recruiting there, and they pulled her out. So I want to talk, Craig, now, if I may, about Officer Terry Yeeke.
Okay.
You know about this guy?
I've heard the name.
He was first on the scene. OKCPD. He saved several people's lives. He was set to receive the Medal of Valor from the police department on May 11th, 1996. He had questions. He knew that something did not line up right, Officer Terry Yeeke, who was a real hero. He goes back to the building that night, April 19th, to investigate, and the FBI turned him away. They say, just get in your car and go home, Officer Yeeke. You did enough. He files a report with a series of questions, serious questions about many of the things that you and I are talking about, Craig, that don't make any damn sense, including the fact that people are looking at this and going, a truck outside the building does not do this. Explosives inside a building does this. He is told by his superiors to refile the report without the questions. Then they go on, okay, we're going to give you a Medal of Honor. Just calm down. You did a great job. Everybody loves you. 3 days before he is to receive the Medal of Valor, he is found dead in a field near his hometown with a gunshot wound to the head, which is angled downward, and he has dozens of cuts on his wrist, arms, and his neck, and they rule it a suicide. This kills me. When somebody, you know, in Liar Liar with Jim Carrey, where he goes in the bathroom and he doesn't want to testify, and the guy, and so he starts punching himself, hitting himself, and the guy comes in and he goes, "What the hell are you doing?" He goes, "I'm kicking my own ass."
Yeah.
These freaking suicided people, dozens of cuts on his wrists, arms, and neck, gunshot wound to the head angled downward. So you take your gun like this?
Yeah, it's like, and it doesn't. It's one of those when you're supposed to take it, but if they actually recreate it, the way for you to do that position, it's like the blast residue and everything from the gun would have shown, you know, that stuff doesn't work. It doesn't coincide with thing, because it's one of those. I think there was one not too long ago that was the same thing. The guy supposedly, you know, committed suicide with a long rifle. And the trajectory, it's like you would have to almost set up a rig in order to pull that thing off. And nobody who's that distraught is actually going to go through that process of trying to do this elaborate thing. So I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those. I don't know if you can tie this in there, but I think this is one of the ones where we'll just call it the C hit list. Yeah, and it deals with the guy right below you, right where you put Joseph's little comment right on top,
right?
That the hit list.
Yeah. So
yeah, the Boeing whistleblowers. Yeah,
like MA is saying, right? Same things happen. It's a noise, misinformation from the FBI. I mean, and people aren't helping with the analysis of the gunshots and the picture of this, and who's the FBI director that's sitting directly behind Trump filming his assassination, and who's the guy with the backpack and this and that and the other. So they have people hooked into the algos and throwing the stuff in. More from on site. Oklahoma State Representative Charles Key had many, many, many questions, as did many of the parents of the children. This was a place, Craig, where these parents lost their kids and they weren't going to settle for BS. They smelled a rat, right? Fiuto, as we Sicilians call it. If it smells like bullshit, it's probably bullshit, right? So they interview Oklahoma State Representative Charles Key, with the backing of these parents, interviews 120 people, and their belief was that others were involved. That this wasn't just Terry helped them make the bomb, Mike did a few things here and there. They really, really smelled a rat. I have the X-Files thing that I want to talk about, but it almost
go for
feels
it.
like a coda. You have anything else that you want to?
No, I mean we've covered most of the stuff because now we're into what I would say it's soft facts at best, because everything is just it's circumstantial. It's just one of those things. It's like I saw, just like what you said with the assassination. We got so many different people. Like I saw a guy with a backpack. I saw there's this other person that took these weird pictures. It's like we don't have enough details for me to feel comfortable saying, this is a for sure thing. I mean, we know stuff just like that. The officer, okay, first on scene, he saw something he wasn't supposed to see, and he wouldn't be quiet, so he was quieted. This, I guess, is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And so this is the same thing. It's just like there's a lot of people that they go, it's a long list. They're going through of people that have seen something, staffers, you name it, that suddenly breaks fail. This seems like it's just one of those. There doesn't seem to be, and I think that's why the X-Files thing it works perfect right now, because it's the same thing. This is Chris Carter, and the writers masterful at taking, current events at the time, and folding those into storyline.
Right.
It's like, even though it didn't take place in Oklahoma City, in the movie, it was still, they used the Oklahoma City, they used that footage.
But it was Dallas, and Dallas, Denver, and OKC were the short list. So the movie takes place in 1998, which means if it comes out in 1998, they started writing it at least in 1997. It begins at the Dallas Federal Building, and there's a bomb threat, and they're trying to find the bomb. But Fox, being Spooky Mulder, he realizes that the bomb is actually in another building. So there you go. Remember, it was supposed to be in the courthouse next door. McVeigh couldn't get the truck underneath, so he goes to another building. Like, it tracks so well. Then, and here's the crazy thing, Craig, this almost feels like there's this fake video of Stanley Kubrick supposedly admitting that he faked the moon landing. They have Terry O'Quinn plays the lead FBI agent. Mulder finds the bomb in a soda machine. He calls in this guy. They all come over. They start evacuating the building. The whole FBI comes from the wrong building, the federal building. They come over to this other building. He sits in front of it, and he lets it blow up. He clears the room, and he lets it blow up. It's like Chris Carter's like saying to you guys, the FBI was complicit. They let this happen. We used the footage. It wasn't the building that they thought it was going to be. It's chilling. And Tanya and I kind of like through a synchronicity happen to be watching, the myth arc. But it almost feels, I don't know, could we get in trouble for saying that? It almost feels that way. Because the next scene starts with Scully is in this room. Okay. And Craig, I this was the transition to Homeland Security, who runs so many things right now, Mayorkas, right, and all that.
Yep.
And we found out, I think it's reliable data, that there were more DHS people than there were Secret Service people. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on, like everybody was on the campaign trail, all this kind of stuff. But I think it's Gwyneth Paltrow's mom. I think it's Blythe Danner, says the Attorney General, following the events at Ruby Ridge and Waco, wants to make sure XYZ. So Chris Carter seems to have packaged this whole thing with his commentary on it.
Well, that's one of the things. Like, that's why when you say, I like you're going back watchers. People watch these things. You'll start to see. When the show was out, you were like, no, but when you actually look at it from the perspective of what's going on, you realize that this is almost like the Tom, I want to say it's Tom Clancy. Maybe I'm wrong.
Tom Clancy was supposedly an insider.
Yeah, that just, you almost think that he has somebody on the inside feeding him information, because this arc, like you said in the movie, you're like, if you actually think about it and you look at the way that there are things, he's telling you a story inside of a story. It's like and it's just like same way. It's like all this stuff, and you look at it and you're like, yeah, he's pointing out, through these things that this is, you got to read more into what you're seeing because this is what's actually going on. And that's where these, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we can get in trouble for that because it's, it's history. It's there. I mean, this is
and it's our close read. It's our
yeah,
close
it's
read, and I think that the evidence is there, right? So
yeah, and that's yeah. I mean, I think it's just one of those MAL and kind of put that the plausible deniability. I think that's always been. I've always taken that from. I think it was Clear and Present Danger.
Tom
That
Clancy, yeah.
where they used that line, plausible deniability, and it's like you've got the little letter, letterhead, and I think that's always been kind of that from the Iran-Contra affair and that type of thing. It's always been how to do something, but also be able to cover it to where you have that ability to say, I know nothing.
Right.
And I think that's where, no, I was just saying that's where some person over there goes in.
Right. I was thinking of Roland Emmerich when you were talking about guys who have insider info. I think J.J. Abrams was a guy who had insider info. Steven Spielberg, we've talked, Close Encounters. He's coming out with a new UFO movie called The Dish. It's coming out in 2026. The news just kind of broke on that. I'm going to be very curious to see what that is because Steven Spielberg's kind of a made guy. But Roland Emmerich did Independence Day, and they're on Air Force One after the shit goes down, and the tall guy says to him, "Plausible deniability, sir.
Yeah,
we have a spaceship at Roswell, so it's like, well, how can we fight these guys? Like, we have no idea how." And he's like, "That might not be entirely true."
really true. Yeah, the CIA guy. Yep.
Yeah, exactly right. So, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's one of those, like, for a wrap up for me, it's like through all my research, and like if anybody can find this, I never could find anybody that that could pin down anybody that thought this is for sure like the John Doe number 2.
No,
they were just, it was like they had drawings, but it was such a generic drawing. It could be anybody in a cap, a hat. I mean, it's like you realistically take the drawing, shave my face, I could be John Doe number 2. I mean, there's just really, it was such a generic drawing that is, and I said, and everybody, the story was always different. They were wearing this, they were doing that, just something different. So I never found that. But like I said, I'd love to hear, like, through the later on, people that are watching this, in replays, I'd love to hear your thoughts and see what you think. Because do you agree that, Terry Nichols, played a much bigger role than, a lot of the times is let on? I mean, because that's out of the research, that's what I came away with. Is that Terry Nichols played more of a mastermind role than I actually thought.
Yeah, and served a life sentence without parole. So was punished commensurate with what they believe. So someone mentioned Ted Gunderson. Definitely check out his research if you want to know more about this. There's a journalist named Derek Broze, and I want to Broze, and I definitely want to give a shout out to him. He's doing a really, really good, they're half-an-hour installments. It's kind of like Sinister Mysteries, really. So get more of that brand or a similar brand, The Pyramid of Power. And he's looking at all this kind of stuff, looking at really good people. Craig, I just wanted to, and we try to keep these to an hour and 15 minutes if we can, because it helps with the engineering for ERT Radio on my program. So I can do a full nice edit to clean up the audio for that. Oklahoma City to 9/11 to mass surveillance, digital ID, social and carbon credits. It is all of a piece. This stuff is highly, highly, highly topical. And our audience totally gets that. That's what they were all talking about. All topical stuff. This is not ancient history. There's a couple of things. There's a couple of keywords that I want everybody to keep in mind as we go forward. Problem, reaction, solution. This is how they do. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Identify the problem, stir up a reaction, come in with a solution, and be a hero. and we're facing this all the time. Another thing now that I really want to leave you with, and this is really Whitney Webb and her partner. I forget his first name, but I think it's Matt Godwin. Manufactured consent. That's the world that we live in, Craig. That's what's being foisted upon us now. With
I was going to say that's kind of and that's kind of because just like you said, it's you manufacture the problem, and then you wait for the reaction, and then you have this, you have the fix, you have the solution to whatever way it goes. And so that's it's just like that. It's the same thing. It's like they have the manufacturer consent was basic. If especially if I'm interpreting that right, would just be like what happened with C-19. You basically you create something that people you've manufactured something, people consent to the action, and they're good. Same way with 9/11. You create an issue, you have the solution, everybody gives a consent. Rounding applause as we Patriot Act, and that was the solution that was already waiting. They're waiting for the reaction, and everybody did what they hoped they would do. Applause, freedom, as you sign away your very freedom as they vote.
Because what do you say just prior? You say, if you're not with us, you're a terrorist. If you sell dope, you're a terrorist. If you disagree with us, you're a terrorist. If you don't like a certain person now, you're a racist. You're a misogynist. You're a,
you've already got the demonization. It's like if you don't follow along, if you don't put on a mask, you're a killer. You're trying to kill grandma and all that stuff. And where it's like it's like you're eliminating a free choice. You're basically saying you're either with us or against, just like you said, and that's yeah.
So remember, guys, problem, reaction, solution, manufactured consent, the Overton window, Craig, which I've adopted from you. And we're wearing this damn thing out because Charles is right. I want to put it up on the screen. He's right. They work from a very small playbook, and that's why we see these patterns and parallels over and over. It's a limited playbook. They're not that creative, but they like the tried and the true, and they're arrogant. You mentioned Dick Cheney, and Dick Cheney was so arrogant, along with John Bolton too, right? Who was the ambassador to the UN. These guys were like, yeah, this is what we're doing. What are you going to do about it? We're the United States. Take a shot. We don't give a shit. And that was astonishing to me watching that in real time.
Yeah, I put it up there for people for nobody that understands the Overton window, and I said, given credit, I learned that term from I was listening to Glenn Beck, and I read one of the books, and he talked about the Overton window. And really quick, what it is just like, say I want a brand new gaming computer that's $7,000, and so I go to my wife and I say, I want this, what I really want is a brand new computer. So I go tell her, I want this $7,000 computer with all of this thing, all these features. She's like, that is absolutely ridiculous. Well, what about this computer? This will be able to let me do Office and stuff. Okay, we can do that one. I just got my new computer.
Yeah, that's what
I made what I wanted a reasonable choice. But because, and that's what this thing goes. And that's Bernays, that's one of those things, because that's where it came from, is this propaganda. It's all about pushing the envelope and creating something, and what you wanted all along seems like the reasonable solution.
Yeah. And I think, Craig, that's what's going on with Project 2025. They know they're not going to get that in whole cloth, but you can say, no, that went way too far. I distanced myself from it, which Trump is already doing. But the Department of Education does have to XYZ, and this kind of thing does have to XYZ. Yeah, I think that's what's going on, but we're going to do a whole show on that. So, guys, we're going to let you go. If you get down to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, check out my new escape room, Mothman 66. People are really digging it. I think you'll have a lot of fun, and you'll learn a lot about Mothman and the history and all, which I've been studying since 2009.
Support this man and his thing.
I just, the algorithms are killing us. But anyway, We soldier on, and the people who are listening, and all our numbers are going up, even on our old shows. So we're going in the right direction, Craig, actually. Next week, I'm going to have a woman on named Nancy Timms, who professes to be a contactee lifelong and runs an organization called Time for Disclosure. So that should be really good. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do Ted Kaczynski. And then in 2 weeks after that, we are going to do the
Bundy, I think,
Bundy standoffs.
Yep.
Bundy standoffs. Then we're going to do the Las Vegas shooting. And then 2 weeks after that, we're going to do that's when we are going to do Project 2025. And 2 weeks after that, if we still have a country and we're still on the air, we're going to do Peter Thiel, because it's time to unpack this guy and what also going on with the surveillance state and backing J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is a product of Peter Thiel, Thiel, guys. So thank you all. Yeah, we're working hard because we have to, because the stakes are super, super, super high. And
perfect timing for the mysteries.
November, brother.
Yep.
I mean, look at what has happened in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, when we get through these shows, we'll pretty much be knocking on the election.
Yeah. Yep. And maybe we'll do some real we'll do some real topical stuff there.
That'll work for me.
What's going on? And and the one thing you're not going to see either one of us do is endorse a candidate, because this is happening above, guys. This is, some people call it the uniparty, some call it the deep state, some call it the global elite. I kind of like that. The military industrial complex, the swamp. It's real. And that's where we're at. Right, brother?
Mm-hmm. If you want to talk more about this, you like you said, Ron just put the invite out there. Anybody can be a guest on his show. So if you want to talk more about these topics and, kind of do like an after show discussion, go see Ron at ERT Radio and try to get on there, and you guys can talk about where'd we get it right, where'd we get it wrong, and like I said, keep the conversation rolling. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Peace.
Good night.